Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Today we got Alan Saunders. We're going to do our stars and skulls grades from the Ravens game, but we also got to talk about how does this offense get better in the red zone overall, becoming more efficient with Russell Wilson at quarterback, maybe Justin Fields working in. We'll talk about all that here on a big episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. You can get a big return on FanDuel today. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. More on them later. As I said before, we're joined by the man himself, Alan Saunders. He's back from SteelersNow.com. We always love having him on the show. Alan, I want to lean with something that Tomlin dipped into, but everyone knows the Steelers offense did not score a touchdown this last game against the Ravens. They found a way to win. They overcame adversity. They won time of possession. I thought that was important, but still, everyone knows this offense will have to be better in future games if they want to keep the pace that they're on at 8-2. And as we saw against the Commanders, they'll need more games where they're able to put up some points on the board here. You brought up something very interesting. The Steelers don't have good red zone numbers for the most part this year, but you brought up something very interesting about the red zone possessions with Fields and Wilson. Can you tell everyone what you found and what your takeaways from your findings?
Yeah, this really started when the Steelers had that one series. They get big Najee Harris run. They get in the red zone. It was 1st and 5. And it was just a very obvious situation where it's like, man, you probably don't need to throw the ball here. You just got to kind of work it in there, whether it's a handoff or a toss or a quarterback run or, whatever. You can really just make this happen. And they really struggled. They didn't execute that series very well. Ended up kicking a very short Chris Boswell field goal. And I said during the game, I'd have put Justin Fields in right then and there. Like 1st and goal at the 5, to me, is a situation where it's tailor-made. If you're going to have a package of plays with Justin Fields, and we saw him run 3 snaps, he ran the ball twice in this game. If you're going to use them, 1st and goal at the 5 is when I would want to use them. And so I went back and I did some numbers today on drives where the Steelers got inside the opposing 10-yard line. Each Fields and Wilson had 11 of them. Fields scored 8 touchdowns, kicked 1 field goal, and got stopped on 4th down once. Wilson had 4 touchdowns, 5 field goals, and Jalen Warren fumbled at the 1. So 5.4 points per trip inside the 10 with Justin Fields at quarterback, 3.9 points per trip inside the 10 with Russell Wilson at quarterback. If you keep getting there more, which Russ is doing, they both have 11 trips. Russ only played 4 games. If you keep getting there more and you convert at Fields level, it's an extra 4.5 points a game. That's a big deal for a team that seems to play one-score games almost all the time. Now, I'm not saying you have to play Justin Fields every time you get inside the 10, but I think situations where you need a yard or two or you get 1st and 5 at the 5 or something like that where you can literally just become the Philadelphia Eagles and put your head down and push your quarterback forward. Why would you want it to be the 35-year-old that's only 5'10" and has a bad calf? Like, Justin Fields is on the team. You got 53 guys. Use him. He's really good. Like, it's not like this is some scrub backup that everyone should be afraid of being in the game. He's an incredible athlete. I think he brings a lot to the table. The Steelers obviously looking for ways to involve him. This seems like a no-brainer to me.
I think it should be, especially because I feel like, the Steelers always want to test things out, right? Like with Russell Wilson in, they wanted to give him time to settle into the offense. Now I think he is settling. He's still not fully settled. I think there's still things that he's learning all the time. But in this game, then you also were able to say, hey, we're bringing out the pace. We're switching up the pace. Now it's time for Justin Fields. I thought the times in which they brought Justin Fields in made a lot of sense because they were plays where you're the Steelers, you wanted to protect the football, but you wanted to get yards. And especially on that last possession, even though he slid early on that play, I thought that was a good play because the Ravens knew the Steelers wanted to run it. They did not want to put the ball in the air. They did not want to risk stopping the clock to give the Ravens a chance to have a field goal drive, to win the game. So it's like, we know you want to run the ball, so we got to make you think. So how do we make you think? We make you think with the really fast quarterback in the backfield, where you're going to have to account for the option run on top of Najee Harris or Justin Fields, or a potential pass in that situation.
Yeah, look at, 4th and 1 early in the game. Russell Wilson, a quarterback, handoff to Najee Harris, gets blown up. 4th and 1 with Justin Fields to win the game. Najee Harris gets the 1 yard. They got to account for another guy. Like, it's just giving the defense more work to do, even if he's not doing anything other than hand it off. And it's not like they have to do any work. Like, it's not like they have to put in a new play, a new package. Right. It's just stuff it's just using stuff they've literally already done again. Like, it's the easiest way to make a big change up to your offense in the red zone. Justin Fields, it's not just about his running either. Like, we know he can run. He's 6th in the NFL in completion percentage in the red zone right now. Like, if it's a pass, that's fine too. He's legitimately good in that area. Use him.
And this is not to say Russell Wilson should be pulled entirely. This is not saying that he should be taken out, because I still think Russell Wilson's doing a decent job for the Steelers at quarterback, even a good job, in this situation. But again, I think that one thing that you're looking at here is the Steelers are about efficiency, are about spreading the ball around. It's funny. George Pickens used that word twice when we spoke to him after the game. Efficiency. He kept saying that because I think what he was pointing at was that the Steelers are at their best when they're hitting you with when they're forcing you to think about all the different things that they can do. When Najee Harris is involved, when Jalen Warren's involved, when Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, George Pickens, Calvin Austin, and now Mike Williams. And I think that's a big factor here. And in this game, we'll get to our stars and skulls in a little bit here. In this game, there were 2 big drops on third downs by Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson, and Mike Williams didn't play a whole lot. Ben Skowronek played more than Mike Williams. Mike Williams played as much as Calvin Austin. I asked Mike Tomlin about the pace of Mike Williams, how he's played, and there was also a follow-up involving the usage of Darnell Washington. I want y'all to listen to how Mike Tomlin addressed my questions on Mike Williams' usage, as well as how Darnell Washington is being used and how that relates to what the Steelers' offensive game plan is. Here was Mike Tomlin in his Monday press conference.
Where do you see Mike Williams at right now as far as jumping on the moving train? He caught the game when he touchdown last week, but had around the same amount of snaps as Calvin Austin, less than Van Jefferson this week.
I like his work. How we feel about his progress is not always reflected in statistics. We'll keep working. He's doing a great job fitting in. We're doing a good job of getting to know him. I like the trajectory of it.
Do you foresee him maybe getting a higher share of snaps in the near future?
We'll see, man. It just really is week to week. And from a matchup perspective, how we put our plan together, I'd be speculating, particularly at this stage of the week, this early. I'd be making it up, and I just don't want to mislead you.
Mike, you're getting Darnell Washington more involved in the middle of the field with some of those routes. How significant is that for what you guys want to do?
It's big when you get a guy like that running down the middle of the field. We're really just trying to spread the ball around and take what the defense gives us, and to have enough depth and talent in all positions where we're comfortable doing that. And I think Darnell's, play in the open middle of the field is a reflection of that. We got guys on the perimeter that people are concerned about from a one-on-one matchup standpoint. Guys like GP and Mike Williams have reputations and resumes that merit you better be careful about one-on-one matchups. And so that pushes people to shells and 2 high safeties, and then the middle of the field is open. And so it's going to be opportunities for guys like Darnell. It all kind of works hand in hand. You asked me about the lack of opportunity for Mike. It might just mean what Baltimore was doing in terms of the 2 high shell, which opened up an opportunity for 2 explosion plays for Darnell Washington. That's just the nature of what it is that we do. We know and understand that. Oftentimes I don't take enough time or care enough to explain it to you guys, and I probably should do it more.
So I think there's a lot of things that Mike Tomlin touches on there. But one thing that I think is really interesting is he's talking about, countering what defenses are doing. Like George Pickens and Russell Wilson both acknowledged to us after the game. The Ravens switched up what they did normally on defense, and the Steelers took some time to adjust to it. We saw in the second half 4 straight drives of 8 snaps or more where they were able to possess the football that led to them dominating time of possession in the second half and keeping the defense fresh there. And I think part of the challenge here is, and including Justin Fields in this too, is Arthur Smith's challenge to involve people each week with the diverse set of skills that the Steelers have on offense, and finding a way to balance that with what defenses are doing, both in what they do before the game as far as the tape that they lay out for you, and what they're doing in the game, and being prepared to counter how they're trying to what they're trying to take away from you.
Yeah, and I think, it's in the game and it's between the games too. I mean, I think you saw you've seen teams react now to a couple games of what George Pickens has done, and he's just straight up getting double covered, like a whole bunch. And teams are going to continue to take that away until other players make you pay. And against Washington, the other way that was there was deep shots on the other side of the field. Like, that's what Washington was giving the Steelers to take away George Pickens and still try to stop the run. What Baltimore was giving the Steelers was something different. And so I think it's just about having different weapons. I like the usage of Darnell Washington in that game. I'd like to see more Pat Freiermuth over the middle. I think he's obviously the better receiver. And I think is a more of a threat to run some yak. But I think they've got a multitude of weapons, and I think it is the job of Arthur. And that's why some people are like clamoring for more Mike Williams. I'm like, look at what Baltimore was doing. They were taking away deep on both sides. So that wasn't a game where Mike Williams was, I mean, maybe they could have thrown it to him once or twice, but that wasn't going to be a game where Mike Williams was going to be the answer. Like what was needed to take advantage of what Baltimore was giving them was an over the middle target. They found one in Washington eventually.
I agree. And I think that was a big thing that helped the Steelers in some big situations. And I think part of what the Steelers need to see from Russell Wilson and from this offense in general is moments where they take advantage of those situations. And sometimes that will involve, hey, can a team run with Justin Fields? Do they have the fast linebackers to account for this and the discipline up front? The Steelers I think have built a roster where they have weapons on their offense that allow them to attack these different things, even if none of them are superstar, ridiculous world breakers. Though at this point in time, I believe George Pickens is now number 3 in receiving yards. So maybe he is one of those guys. But to your point, teams are obviously going to try to take him away. So it's going to be up to Arthur Smith, Mike Tomlin, the Steelers offensive game plan to come up with the ways to use those other players. And then 2, it's going to be up to execution, because the offensive line is also going to need to protect Russell Wilson, to give him those chances and better chances in. It's going to be up to Russell Wilson to see it, because there's times that he missed things this weekend, and we'll get to more of that with Stars and Skulls in the next couple segments.
Yeah.
We're going to get to Stars and Skulls in a minute here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Alan Saunders, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by Z-Biotics. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drinks is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break down this byproduct, and just a reminder, remember to take Z-Biotics before your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. I first gave pre-alcohol a try, and I had some birthday fun with my friends recently, and I woke up the next morning feeling fine after a lot of festivities. Here's how to use Z-Biotics. Step 1, drink pre-alcohol before your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly still, pace yourself, and hydrate. Step 3, wake up and enjoy tomorrow feeling refreshed. It's that easy. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On NFL at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL at checkout to get 15% off. We're also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel because they are America's #1 sportsbook. And as you know, FanDuel covers NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, college sports, and so much more. Go to FanDuel.com today to get started. And right now, the Steelers are still 4.5-point road favorites over the Cleveland Browns on FanDuel Sportsbook right now in their Thursday night matchup in Cleveland. However, the money lines have shifted a little bit, slightly back towards the Browns. Not enough to change the favoring, but the Steelers money line has now moved down to -198. The Browns have moved down to +166. Still not a huge flip there. Over under still at 39.5, which suggests a low scoring affair. Where you place your bets on the short week for the Steelers, do so at FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. You can download the app on your phone today or go to FanDuel.com. When you go to FanDuel.com, you can get started if you're a new customer, because if you're a new customer and you hit on your first bet of $5 or more, you get $150 in bonus bets back in your account. That's $150 in free bets for new customers if you hit on your first bet of $5 or more. Only on FanDuel.com. Visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan, it's time for Stars and Skulls time. We're going to get to our grades here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. As always, we start with you. Our rubric is stars are good, skulls are bad. 1 to 3 stars for good to elite. 1 to 3 skulls for a bad play without a redemption to all-time terrible. Now, Alan, every week there's always some player that doesn't have a good game that everyone wants the legendary bus ticket grade that we sometimes give out when you're that bad they need to just ship you away. We handed out a few of those last year, and some of those guys did get bussed out of town. However, I still am not giving out a bus ticket, and I still don't have a 3 skull grade. I did have a 3 skull grade earlier this season, I think, but I didn't have one for this week. I just had two skull grades, and I want to get into why those were. But if you had to guess, who were my two skull grades that I'm giving out?
Broderick Jones, maybe.
There's one.
I'm not coming up with another one off the top of my head here.
The other one was his partner, Dan Moore Jr., who I felt struggled in pass protection. The one thing that I'll say is, and I have to admit, we are recording this Monday early afternoon. We had to do Mike Tomlin. I had to do some Pitt football stuff, and I have to cover. We're doing this earlier in the day than we normally do because I have Pitt basketball tonight. So I have not had the advantage of watching nearly as much all 22 review as I normally do. So I might have to amend some of these grades. But when I look back, I did see Broderick Jones making mistakes, but I saw both him and Dan Moore make some really good blocks in the run game. There were some plays where I thought Broderick Jones demolished people on his side. I also thought some of the penalties, as we discussed with Joy Porter Jr. last week, I thought some of the penalties against Broderick were a little soft, for a word.
Similarly to Joey, that like we talked about that crew last week. This is a crew that calls a lot of holding. Like that was the thing about this officiating crew.
And still not one holding called when anyone was holding TJ Watt all game. But again, to the point though, I think these guys had rough games in protecting Russell Wilson. Owe was just eating them alive. He got 3 sacks, I think 1 against Broderick, 2 against Dan. But when I looked back at the totality, and I did get a chance to at least rewatch the game a little bit, I went back and I said, look, there were times Broderick got beat, but there were also times that he made plays. Still not a good game. And in fact, I do think it was a bad game for Broderick. But this wasn't like when we're talking about 3 skulls games, we're talking about when dudes are utterly destroyed and they don't have a redeemable moment in them. And there were redeemable moments for both of these guys. That's why the offense was able to possess the football in the second half. So again, not good, not even slightly bad. I'd still give them bad grade. That's why they get 2 skulls. But these, I know people want the all-time they want their pound of flesh. They want their bus ticket. I'm not giving it to you unless it's properly earned. And I don't think these guys were as bad as people made them out to be.
So I'm with you. I've not watched the all 22 yet, but I did rewatch the broadcast version of the game. And I'm not even sure these guys were this bad. I mean, the 2 if you want to put Jones here because sack plus penalty, and nothing really adds up to that to outweigh it because of the rubric. Okay, fine, I get that, and more with the 2 penalties. So you have like those sort of 5 like really bad negative plays. But I'll tell you what, Like down in and down out, these guys were not bad. And I love Broderick Jones getting up and getting in the face of people, like being the
Yeah. They need bullies, and he was a bully, and that's again a point for him in my book.
This is. Have you really played a Steelers? The Ravens have a saying that you're not really a Raven until you beat the Steelers. My saying is going to be you haven't really played in Steelers Ravens until you got a personal foul. Like that's just like I like the attitude. I was okay. I'm okay with breaking a few eggs here to make this omelet. They ran the ball against the number 1 rushing team in the country. They ran the ball for 110 yards.
I think it was 122.
Yeah, between Harris and Jalen Warren. Like, I didn't think that was coming. I thought if they were going to beat this team, they were going to have to throw it to beat them. They ran the ball effectively. So, yeah, 122 yards. Like, I don't know. I don't think they were even that bad. I think that Odafe is a good pass rusher. He got off one move on each of them. The second one against Moore, he kind of stumbled, and even then it was like a slow loss that I really thought Russ should have just got rid of the ball. But I don't know. I think this is even maybe slightly too harsh here.
Oh man, see, Alan saying I'm too hard on the big guys. I apologize, big people. Listen, Broderick Jones could probably like pick me up with one hand. So, hopefully he's not looking at this and being like, Chris, I'm going to see you in the locker room this week.
Has nothing to do with the fact that Broderick threatened bodily harm against me after the game.
No. Wait, he did? I missed that. I'm not playing. Broderick's actually been very nice. Like he's actually very cool to talk to. No problems with that at all. But let's keep it moving here. I have 2 1 grades. Because when I looked back at it, there were a lot of grades that I was like, at first I was like, and I was like, you know what? They actually did some things to counterbalance it. But there's 2 guys that I thought had some mistakes that never got to redeem them. Can you guess who those 2 players are?
Didn't think it was a great game for Dante Jackson.
That's not him.
Okay.
I'll give you a hit. They're both on offense.
Both on offense, huh? Calvin Austin really only had the one play, and Van Jefferson was a drop.
Correct. Both had just rough drops. And look, the Calvin Austin drop, it was like on the back shoulder, and
that ball's 8 yards underthrown for Calvin Austin. Yeah, if it's Mike Williams, that should be a catch. You can't let the 5'8" guy have to stop and fight back to the ball. You got to put it out in front of him.
But
I mean,
a
bigger receiver would have caught it, but he is not a bigger receiver.
He is not a bigger receiver, but at the same time, that was one of those passes where it's like, hey, if you want to be out there instead of Mike Williams, you got to make those types of catches.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah.
And he didn't make it. Again, 1 skull does not mean again a bad. It's just you had one bad play, and he never got to redeem himself in this game. He never did. He did have some okay punt returns, but I didn't think that was anything. Like if he had a big punt return, then I would have said, okay, no, never mind. Good day for him. So again, just a bad moment there. Van Jefferson had a drop. It was a 3rd down pass that probably doesn't go anywhere unless he makes a guy miss because it was short of the sticks. But still a drop nonetheless. In a moment there. Again, just 2 moments that I thought were forgivable, but just, hey, they made a mistake here and there, and that's just where I saw it on the tape in my reviews there. But I do think, going back to the Mike Williams question, both those drops make me think like, hey, maybe they should be including more, especially if Russell Wilson wants to be able to live outside the numbers the way that he seems to enjoy to do so. Having those 2, having Pickens and Williams as your outside guys, which could open up more of the inside for Washington and Freiermuth and maybe Austin in the slot or Harris and Warren out the backfield. Maybe that's just the setup the Steelers should use so that perpetual sideline threat on both sides of the field is regularly there for this offense.
I think you're going to see more of it. 9 snaps the first game, had about 23 second game. I think you're just going to see that number keep going up.
Certainly, we got to get to more. We'll get to the stars in a minute here. As always, we start with the bad on the good, on the wins. We get to the good next. We'll get to our stars here next on the Locked On Steelers podcast with our Stars and Skulls grades episode here with Alan Saunders. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I'll remind you that this show is also brought to you by Built Rewards. Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? It's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious reward. That's where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points towards a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them towards a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's join, JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use your URL so that they know that you sent you. It's join, JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNFL to start earning points with your rent payments today. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter, Alan Saunders. Alan, let's get to the stars segment of the show. This is when the good grades come in. Let's start with the 1 stars here. Long list of guys here, 1 stars off and on because, guys have good contributions. I got Darnell Washington. He had 2 catches over the middle. I did dock him a little bit for not going up for the ball in the end zone on the Russell Wilson interception, but not too much. Still, those 2 catches. I thought about giving him 2 stars with the way that he blocked in the run game. I thought he was pretty solid there. But Darnell Washington, Ben Skowronek, another good willing run blocker in the run game. Zach Frazier, Isaac Seumalo, Deshaun Elliott, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, Corliss Waitman. Corliss Waitman is a 3-star, so that's a spoiler here. That was a miss by me to not take him off the 1-star list. Again, we were doing this pretty quickly in between a very busy Monday. I put Dante Jackson here because I thought he did a solid job outside of the touchdown. I thought he was kind of pushed off on that. Micah Fitzpatrick for some of the really good tackles he made in this game to keep the Ravens in check. And Landon Roberts, Beanie Bishop, Mason McCormick also all there. And just a note, if you're not seeing a certain player that you want to see here, it's because they probably got more stars here. But Alan, give us your thoughts here on some of these 1-star guys that you're seeing on your screen.
Yeah, I didn't give Darnell too much. I mean, I don't think he was catching that ball if he tried like 100 times. That was pretty far over his head. And while Darnell is a lot of things, a high jumper, he is not. I mean,
he's just a high existing person. I mean, he just
right.
I didn't know you could throw it over him.
Tall people don't learn how to jump because they don't have to, because there's nothing for them to jump for. Like there's no reason for them to be any higher. Honestly, I'd have given Zach Frazier another star here. I thought he was pretty darn good and minimizing Madubuike and Jones. Those guys
didn't allow a pressure. That's a good point.
Didn't allow pressure and was just a bulldog finishing people onto the ground. I thought him and McCormick were real tone setters. I could have given them both 2 stars for the way they run blocking, and the pressure that did come was all on the outside. I love Corliss Waitman getting more than 1. I agree with that. Couple like Jackson got beat for the touchdown. I could have given him nothing. Same with Minka. I thought he was pretty good, but the big play to Likely was probably on him, but he did make that really nice tackle on Derrick Henry. Yeah. Actually had a couple nice. Okay, I'm talking myself back into the 1-star for me. And good shot for Beanie Bishop too. Quiet day, like didn't hear his name called, but against a team with a really good slot receiver in Zay Flowers, that is exactly what you want from your slot cornerback.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that that was my point in putting him here, is that they couldn't pick on him. And if I'm the Ravens offense and I'm the number 1 offense, I look for my mismatches. And if I'm looking at the Steelers defense, I'm like, not Joey Porter Jr., maybe a little bit of Dante Jackson, definitely not Minka, definitely not Deshaun. Beanie Bishop, let's go after him. And they couldn't. And I thought that was a really good sign for Beanie. Cool points to him there. I do agree with you, although on Zach Frazier, again, I only got to watch a little bit in the O-line. I was looking more at their pass protection in this game than their run blocking. And if I look back at it, I might do a retrograde and boost up McCormick and Frazier especially. I thought Seumalo got beat a few more times than I would have liked, which is why I do think he's a legit 1-star. But I do agree with you. Frazier and McCormick could be higher. when I do my rewatch, because I don't just watch games at the start of the week, I do keep kind of going back over them to make sure I'm trusting what I'm seeing in my analysis moving forward. So if I make that adjustment, I'll make it known on the show moving forward. But let's get to our 2-star grades, and quite a few of them in this one. We got 5 2-stars. I got Nick Herbig, George Pickens, Dean Lowry, Peyton Wilson, and Keanu Benton. Some young guys in here on this list. Let's start with Nick Herbig. Alan, notice that when we looked at PFF gave Nick Herbig a grade of 36.7, the lowest graded player in the game. And I thought that was absolutely nuts, considering he forced a fumble on the second play of the game. He had 4 pressures on Lamar Jackson. He was consistently in the backfield. Sure, he missed some opportunities on the QB option runs, and he was out of position on some of those. But to me, when I look back at Nick Herbig, I thought he had a really good game.
Just more proof that the stupidest people in all of football work for Pro Football Focus. And if you want to know less about the game of football, and if you want to sound dumber when you're talking about football, you should pay a lot of attention to what Pro Football Focus thinks and says. I mean, it's never been any clearer that is the worst run company in all of football media. They're total frauds. Nothing they do is beneficial to the understanding or knowledge of the sport, and the entire world would know more about the game if it had never existed.
My goodness, he just took a flamethrower to pro. Jeez, I wasn't even going there. I was just pointing that out just for funsies. But all right, fine. Okay, so we got a lot to talk about. We're already at the 30-minute mark, and I still got to do my 3 stars. But let's get to the rest of 2 stars. George Pickens, I thought the biggest play, I know some people are going to look at the sideline catch. To me, that third down catch where he got blasted by Kyle Hamilton over the middle, and he held on to the football, that to me was more important than the sideline, because we know he can go up and get it on the sideline. But making those tough catches on those tight underneath routes, those are the things that if he can do that on top of everything else that he does, he will be the toughest guy to guard in the NFL someday. And right now, again, he's the 3rd ranking in receiving yards, only behind Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. And those guys are already established. I think George Pickens is proving a lot of people wrong right now.
This is one of those games where, like, you have to watch the game, because 8 catches for 89 yards for a receiver of George Pickens' caliber does not like jump off the page at you. It doesn't scream like, oh my God, you had to see what this guy did. There were 2 guys on him on every single play.
Yep.
If you do that against that level of attention, that's incredible. And that's all I can really say about what George Pickens did, is that it's incredible. Like, he is having an incredible season. His numbers, combined with the lack of care that anybody has to cover any other receiver on this team, is just, it's unbelievable.
Absolutely. Last thoughts on the 2-star guys here. Dean Lowry, I thought I gave him 2 stars because he made multiple really important plays coming off the bench, and having depth on your defensive line, something the Steelers haven't always had. It adds so much, and he added so much. Peyton Wilson, that interception was just ridiculous. But even on top of the interception, it wasn't just one play. He was really good when he was on the field. He erased some things in the passing game. His speed was there. He was helping against the run. I thought Peyton Wilson did a really good job. And Keanu Benton, I think he continues to be a growing asset on that defensive front, a big part of that big picture that you've seen dominate there. 3 big contributors up front, Alan, that I think that were a big part of the Steelers' strong defensive day.
Yeah, I think you felt it when Keanu Benton wasn't out there at the end of the game. And I think that's probably the biggest credit to the way he was playing. Really good against Lamar. He's so big, but he has that quickness, right? And so, he keeps Lamar in check. The biggest thing the Steelers did in this game was not let him get out of the rush lanes and go run wild like he does. And I thought Keanu Benton was a big part of that.
All right. We have 6 3-star players in this game. 6. So it might be the most we've had all season. I have already revealed one to you by accident in Corliss Waitman, because he punted the snot out of the ball. Can you guess the other 5 based off of the process of elimination of who I haven't named so far?
Chris Boswell, and that's not a shocker.
Not a shocker.
Patrick Queen.
Check. That's 3.
Player on the field, down in and down out throughout the entire game. Joey Porter Jr.
Correct.
0 completions.
0.
That's pretty impressive. Down. Do you have Najee Harris there?
No, I put Najee with a 1-star.
Okay, Najee was the 1-star. Okay. I'm running out of guys here. What do I got? 2 more?
Yeah, 2 more. Think about the people who dominated the game or the side that dominated the game.
Well, we haven't mentioned TJ Watt yet, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And he's one of them. So you got one more. There's another big name we have not
Cam
named.
Hayward.
There you go. We worked our way to the 6. Your 6 3-star players against the Ravens this week. Chris Boswell, Corliss Waitman for special teams, just dominance by the Steelers. Patrick Queen, Joey Porter Jr., Cam Hayward, TJ Watt. That defense just really broke through. And those 4 guys I named on defense. And if someone pointed this out in the YouTube comment section, they're like, Chris, you didn't talk at all about Chris Boswell in the game. I'm like, yeah, because you know what? I don't know nothing about kicking. The guy's a great kicker. He's the best kicker in the league. He's the best kicker in the world. What do you want me to say other than he's the great kicker? Because I can't spend a whole segment talking about, man, Chris Boswell, he kicks the ball really good. He's the best. Wizard of Oz, he's the man. Pay that man. He's earning his paycheck. He's better than Justin Tucker now. I know he won't say he wants to pay Tucker his due, but that man is the baddest man out there. So that's all I can say about kicking, and that's all I can say about punting. Corliss Waitman punted the snot at the ball. But when looking at these 4 guys, Alan, when I looked back at it, Patrick Queen did so many things, even when he wasn't being the leading tackler for the Steelers. He was taking away routes down the middle part of the field. He was reading, he was communicating, he was saying, hey, let's jump in this lane. He was forcing the run to go different ways. Last week was his best game leading up to this week. This game was better than that. And if this is a sign of what's to come from Patrick Queen, watch out, because he is a pain train coming for a lot of offenses the rest of the season.
Patrick Queen is such a great cover linebacker in that he obviously has physical speed that he can stay with even slot receivers. There's a rep that my guy DB pointed out of him going all the way down the field with Zay Flowers up the seam against cover 2, just 30 yards downfield, running stride for stride with the best wide receiver on the Baltimore Ravens. So not only does he have the speed to do that, but he also has the size, the physicality, and the toughness to go take on a guy like Mark Andrews, to go take on a guy like Derrick Henry. That is such a rare combination that even if you are not seeing him make all the plays that he made against the Ravens, and he did make a lot of plays against the Ravens, but even if he's not making all those plays, if all he's doing is fulfilling that incredibly difficult range of assignments, it is such a cheat code for the rest of the defense. Look at how much Landon Roberts was on the field in this game, okay? And look at how the Steelers did against Derrick Henry versus everybody else, half his average yards per game against the Steelers. Now, I think we all know that's because Landon Roberts is on the field, but you can't have a Landon Roberts on the field if you don't have someone to cover up in coverage. And that's what Patrick Queen gives them, is that it's the hammer and the sickle, man. Like, you got to have both, and they did. And so, yeah, Roberts can go Hulk smash against the run, and Queen's like, don't worry, whatever comes back here, I got it. And it's a perfect pairing. They're opening up so much more with their defense because of his coverage ability. What an awesome game. What a player. I think the Steelers, I know there were some people that were concerned at the beginning from Patrick Queen. I kept saying, just give him some time. He'll figure it out. I think you're seeing what it looks like when Patrick Queen is going now.
Agreed. We can talk all day about Cam Hayward and TJ Watt, but we know those guys are just elite players there. So I'm not going to harp anymore on them. They know their praise, and then them getting 3 stars isn't a surprise. But Joey Porter Jr. might have had the biggest bounce back game we've seen of any Steeler this year. He was beat pretty regularly by Terry McLaurin. You noted to me last week, like, hey, I don't think he was that bad. And this week he comes out and he shuts down everything that comes his way. When they did throw his way, it was a bad idea. When they didn't throw his way, it was a good idea because they were not targeting Joey Porter Jr. And that was, again, against Zay Flowers, a first rounder in the same draft as him, a guy who's been a playmaker, and they moved him all around. He lined up in the slot on occasion. He was following Zay. He was also covering the onside. That Joey Porter Jr., this was a special game for him. Maybe he has become a Ravens killer, because you think back to his interception of Lamar Jackson last year, and then I highlighted in our post game show for Monday how Patrick Queen said after they called timeout before the 2-minute conversion, it was Joey Porter Jr. who said who most likely he's the most quiet of them. Though Mike Tomlin, funny enough, he said, hey, he's just the most quiet of those guys. That doesn't mean that he is quiet, but he did say that Joey Porter Jr. was like, hey, we're not letting them score right here. We're getting a stop. And it was Joey Porter Jr. When Lamar Jackson rolled to his left, he was the first person there. And he was able to come up, contact him, force him to throw it away. And Joey Porter Jr. helped shut it down. When you have a corner like that can take away number one wide receivers, help against the run, be disciplined, and also be, a leader in a big moment like that speaks volumes. It's something the Steelers haven't had really since, I think, Joe Hayden. And Joe Hayden, even then, was in his older age. Joey Porter Jr. is in his youth. He's still growing. That's a really great sign that he could be the guy that the Steelers really need as a CB1 for the future.
Yeah, man. I think you said it. Like, I think Joey is always going to be a guy that also, I think, like, there's going to be some matchups there, right? Where it's there's like Rashad Bateman is just like, he's big and he's not good enough. Like, I'm sorry, he's just not. Like, he's not going to beat Joey Porter very often. And so, like, this was just a matchup W from the beginning. And then I thought he played really well against the run. The 2-point conversion stop was huge. All game, I think you could see Lamar on the outside looking, do I run? Do I stay in the pocket? Do I pass? Like, double clutching, looking for something that's not there. I thought the Steelers DBs were just awesome at maintaining their scramble drill integrity, but then also giving Lamar something to think about. Like, oh, I can come up. No, I'm back. Oh, we got you. Like, there was a lot of that in this game. I thought he was a big part of that as well. And one more thing, Corliss Waitman, I got nothing to say about the punting, but that dude has always been able to kick, and he didn't have an NFL job because teams didn't think he could hold. I don't see any problems with his holding.
No, I don't.
With Chris Boswell now, I think on pace to kick 40 field goals this season, and real close to an NFL record. His holding is just fine.
And there was also, I forget which field goal. It might have been the fourth field goal because there were 6. It's tough to remember which one. But there was at least one field goal where the snap came in a little high. Waitman brought it down and saved it. To your point, more points for Corliss Waitman. He has certainly stepped up there for the Steelers. Those were your stars and skulls grades for the Steelers. Week 11 win, 18-16 over the Baltimore Ravens. Let us know what you think we should have done higher, lower, better, different. Let us know in the comments section. We appreciate everyone who does enjoy this show. Alan, we appreciate you for joining this show. As always, let people that can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, whatever new social media thing they come up with that they tell me I have to sign up for. SteelersNow.com is where you can find all my written work and my podcast, Steelers Morning Rush, and Steelers Afternoon Drive, on the Steelers Now YouTube page or anywhere you find podcasts.
Thank you very much, Alan, for joining us. Thank you all for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down your Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll see you here tomorrow for more on your Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.